In just a few minutes from now, the ANC will be defending itself in the South Gauteng High Court while ANC Gauteng Provincial Elective Conference proceeds. Jabulani Sithole seeks to interdict the Gauteng Elective Conference. eNCA reporter Lindo Kuhle is standing by. Let's cross to him now. Lindo, how are things looking where you are at this hour?
I can tell you, Anli, that the conference is continuing. Pule Mabe, as well as the Provincial Secretary, Mr. Kawu, basically said in the impromptu briefing that they held that let's go to court. So that is a response to the fact that the person you've mentioned, or rather a delegate on this particular conference, Mr. Sithole, basically took this particular conference to court. They wanted to be interdicted, and we understand that it is on the issue of saying that the 19 quarantined votes in the region of Ekurhuleni, and which will be forcing the entire branches of Ekurhuleni to be quarantined in the voting process of this particular conference, must be quarantined. So essentially they are saying that they are not for that, and we understand that that is the reason why they went to court. So essentially what the ANC has responded to, or how the ANC has responded towards this, is basically to say that they know that there is an interdict, and they are basically saying that as there have been interdicts in the past couple of conferences, they are confident that they'll be able to win this particular interdict. They'll be able to push it aside so that conference may continue. I'll tell you what is happening inside conference. Inside conference, it is continuing. What was outstanding was the issue of the organizational report as well as the treasurer's report to talk about the financial status of the ANC. That has since continued, but what we understand is that they'll be waiting quite closely in terms of listening to what will be the outcome of that court interdict that is set to start at around 6:30. My colleague Pule Litsuiti Jones is in fact at the Johannesburg High Court, essentially waiting and trying to set up for that particular interdict, immediate interdict by some of them, one of the members of the ANC. But Pule Mabe is basically just swayed it away, saying that we've had these interdicts before and we are confident that we'll be able to in fact triumph over it. So they are saying that let's go to court. Members of the ANC that are from the legal team are ready to defend the ANC in its stance to say that they must continue with this particular conference. So that is the status quo at this stage, but of course all of them will be keeping their eyes and pinning their hopes on the fact that that interdict is struck off the roll, and they can be able to continue with this conference that is set to end tomorrow. So there is a timeline as well in terms of what they need to meet.
Lindo, before I go to Pule Litsuiti Jones outside the court, I want to find out from you what the response has been from other members attending this conference. Are they in support of this interdict, or are the majority of them hoping that the conference can continue undeterred?
Well, we haven't been able to speak to a lot of ANC members or ANC delegates that are here, but I can tell you that is not for the want of trying. Many of the delegates that we've been trying to reach out to, particularly from Ekurhuleni, have said that this is a silly season. It's something that members of the ANC, whether they are in the executive of governance or in the executive of the ANC, always say that it's a silly season as far as conference is concerned. So what you say can determine your future within the ANC, whether you are prosecuted under the guidelines of the ANC or otherwise. But essentially we've been able to pick up in terms of some of those members we've been able to speak to, because remember, I was part of the team that covered the Ekurhuleni conference, so I saw some of the people that were on the opposing line of the leadership that has been elected with the quarantined votes, and some of the people I've spoken to who did not want to come to camera or speak on camera were essentially saying that it's not possible for us to accept the outcome of saying that our votes will be quarantined in this particular provincial conference, because we also have our own interests. They've also told us the fact that this particular matter of the votes in Ekurhuleni, the fact that it has not been resolved, is a thorny issue for them. They are saying that the matter was escalated to the highest decision body of the ANC, which is the NEC, and now it's being brought back towards the PEC, not not the current PEC and not before conference, so the PEC that will be elected now. So obviously there would be some bias around that in terms of sorting out that issue. So those are some of the issues they are going with when it comes to what is currently happening. There is a plenary session of those processes, such as the organizational report as well as the treasurer's report towards the financial status of the ANC. But they are saying after that, what needs to take place is the adoption of accreditations. So they are saying that they cannot accept accreditations if their votes will not be counted, and that will only lie on the very same leadership that will be elected in this particular conference. So there's a lot of confusion in terms of how they came to this decision. There was a question that was put forth by one of my colleagues to say that what if the voting delegates inside are saying that all of the votes must be tallied for a fair process, and they said that they'll deal with it when it comes to that. But I can tell you that also brings about a problem of saying that the leadership of the REC in Ekurhuleni is not legitimate, in a sense that there are still quarantined votes that must be dealt with. So whatever outcome comes from those adoption of accreditations, there will be questions that need to be answered as far as that region of Ekurhuleni is concerned. And I can tell you, it's been a thorny issue. It was an issue before this conference began. NEC decided that they will push it towards the PEC that will be elected, but which will remain an issue. And that is why we are seeing some of the cadres that are supposed to be in conference going to the court to try and interdict it, because if I can tell you as well, from my side, it's an issue that should have been resolved, because Premier David Makhura, who is the chairperson of the ANC, basically said that no region must sit before they resolve their disputes. Tshwane was one of those regions that had to resolve some of the disputes. Ekurhuleni was one of the regions that was dealing with disputes, but it does seem that it didn't happen in that way. And in fact, the chairperson of the ANC is the one now that is in fact trying to say that this conference must go on despite those disputes that are actually being raised by some of the members, some in court, but some quieter in terms of where this region is concerned off camera.
Right, thank you very much for that, Lindo. Let's bring in Pulele Treaty-Jones now from the court. Pule, we've seen interdicts of conferences in the past couple of months. In fact, pretty much every conference we've covered in the last couple of months has been interdicted by delegates unhappy about one issue or another. Generally, it's about the inclusion or exclusion of some delegates or branches. In this case, we have one delegate, Jabulani Sithole, behind that interdict. Is he representing a group, or is he pushing through this interdict on his own?
No, Annalie, Jabu is representing a group of disgruntled ANC members as well. Like my colleague says, Lindo, it is very important that the ANC looks into this matter. I mean, one has also said that, had the NEC resolved this issue, it would have set a different precedent, meaning that they would have had to deal with other provincial executive committee matters as well. And therefore, that's the reason why they brought it down to a PEC level to say they should deal with this matter immediately. But, the PEC had said that during a briefing yesterday to say they are going to continue with the conference despite knowing about some of these challenges. So you get a sense that they knew that this would come and bite them later on, but they just turned a bit of a blind eye to the situation, and therefore this is what we're seeing. The end result is a court case. And I'm just going to read some of the pointers from this application that has been filed by Jabu and Co, saying that they want the following to be ordered. They want that the Gauteng PEC decide on the matters related to the outcome of the Ekurhuleni Regional Conference, affecting the 5 disqualified branches and their 19 quarantined votes. But also, they also want an order reviewing the setting aside the decision of the PEC taken yesterday, in which the PEC decided that the Gauteng Provincial Conference should proceed. You'd remember yesterday there was about a 7-hour Provincial Executive Committee that sat trying to deliberate these issues and see how they could move forward. And the outcome was that, we will continue with this conference despite knowing that these are some of the challenges. And now what these delegates are saying, which are affected, they want that this conference be interdicted and that these matters be resolved and therefore the conference can continue. But you've heard from our colleague Linobuhle Xulu saying that there was a briefing that was held earlier on, an impromptu one, in which the Provincial Secretary outgoing Jacob Kawe and of course Pula Mabe was saying that the conference will continue while they will be defending their matter in court. And what we understand is that this issue, or rather matter, will be held virtually. But it goes on to say that the control systems of the ANC are being at question again in terms of these kind of qualifications of branches having to come into play here. It's a similar thing we saw as well in the city of Tshwane, the ANC, where a group of disgruntled members were arguing that despite having been through the audit outcome of the branches and them having been legitimate to participate in the conference, they were still being sidelined. So it goes back to the top again to say these are some of the issues that have to be looked into by the ANC as well at national level and be implemented to avoid such litigious issues when having to convene their conferences in future.
Pule, what can you tell us about the timelines of this interdict? Is the matter going to be heard tonight, and is a decision expected tonight?
Yeah, definitely. This is an urgent application that has been brought forward, and whatever bearing this will have on these court proceedings that will be held virtual, it will actually also preside and actually determine the future of this conference. But you get the sense that the ANC is quite confident that they will defend whatever it is that they have to defend. The Provincial Executive Committee as well will have to be dissolved at some point as the conference continues. When I left Benoni, the plenary session hadn't yet started. The adaptation of credentials hadn't yet started yet, so they were delayed. But the spokesperson of the ANC, Pula Mabe, was of the view that there were some things they had to sort out before they could go to the adaptation of credentials, hence the delay, or else the conference would take longer as well, and they would be stuck when they got to the item of the adaptation of credentials. So this court session will give a definite direction as to how this conference goes forward and what happens next. But from the view we're getting from the ANC, they are quite confident that they will defend whatever they can to ensure that this does not threaten the legitimacy of the conference. But if you go through the 69-page application that has been filed, you get to realize the sentiments and grievances that have been tabled here by some of these disgruntled branches who are saying that they're good standing with the ANC and that they're legitimate and that they still don't understand why their votes were quarantined. So it's the ANC silly season, and these are just some of the challenges that are currently facing the conference at the particular moment.
Well, thank you very much to both of you, Linobuhle Xulu and Pulele Chwiti-Jones, covering that Gauteng elective conference for us. We'll continue to bring you updates from there.